The following is a presentation of the Boltup Sports Media Network.
Here comes pressure, throws it to Eckler on the screen. He's got a block to the 10, to the 5, into the end zone.
High pass. Did Williams make that catch? My goodness.
For a first down, Herbert with time. Now running out of time. Throws on the run. Down the sideline. Caught in the end zone. Keenan Allen for the touchdown.
Throws, and again it's intercepted. And that's Asante Samuel.
Here's another one. Watch out.
How did it feel when Derwin James absolutely powerbombed the out of it on national television?
You're listening to the Shock Therapy Podcast with Tyler Lawrence and Zach Alfers.
Welcome back, Zach.
Yeah.
Chargers get a big win on Monday Night Football against a really good defense, maybe an offense that's not quite as good, but that's two back-to-back blowouts. And I think this game, in my opinion, was way more impressive than the Bears game.
Yeah, thoroughly impressed. Justin Herbert and the offense didn't have to do much, but that's because, the special teams and the defense came through in a really dominant way. Defensively, I thought this was our best game. We were talking about it last year. We were going to need some help from the defensive unit. We were talking about a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown was the key to getting us a victory. What does Darius Davis do on just our first possession of the game? Takes it 87 yards to the house. First touchdown, punt return we've had since 2019. I mean, that special team, that defense really carried us. So what a way to set the tone, get back onto, the winning trajectory, and right into a really tough matchup against the Detroit Lions this week.
I feel like everybody is like downplaying the Chargers beating the Jets, right? Everyone's saying, the Jets offense is terrible. Zach Wilson is terrible. This is a team that beat the Bills in week 1 without Aaron Rodgers. This is a team that took the Chiefs to a 3-point game without Aaron Rodgers. This is a team that beat the Eagles. They're a team that put up 31 points against the Broncos, came back from behind win against the Giants. I'm so tired of everybody downplaying that the Chargers, defensively found a way to win this game. I don't care how you win, right? This game, it happened to be special teams. It happened to be sacks on sacks on sacks. And it happened to be finding a way to win just when you need to, not turning the ball offensively over and just playing good enough to win by 3 touchdowns. And everyone's forgetting about this. The Chargers scored 3 touchdowns against a really good Jets defense, beat them by 3 touchdowns against a really good defense. So, stop downplaying it. This was a blowout win against a really good defense and a good enough offense that's getting them into games. They're beating good teams. So, I'm tired of hearing about it or seeing it. I'm just tired of it.
I'm not down with the excuses either. Coming into this game, media's all on New York. Watch out. This is a playoff team potential. They have a defense to carry them there. An elite defense is going to carry you far. And in every facet of the word, the Jets defense is elite. From every position on that roster defensively, they're good. And I think that their offense is not elite by any means, but it's good enough when you have a defense like that, when you only have to score 21 points to be in any game. You got a good football team. Now, all of those teams that you mentioned, playing the Chiefs to the wire, beating the Bills, beating the Eagles, all of those elite quarterbacks threw 2 or more picks against that defense. None of those teams were able to score more than 2 touchdowns, and we were able to do so. With that, I know Justin Herbert had a tough game throwing the ball. Let me pull up his stat line.
So he was 16 for 30, 136 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He took 5 sacks.
Yeah.
He was pressured quite a bit. And it wasn't all blitz packages. It was just the Jets defense just being better on the defensive line than the Chargers were on the offensive line.
No, and all I wanted to say was, statistically, not very impressive game. We know what Justin Herbert can do. What I did want to highlight was his ability to not turn the ball over, which I think is a major strength of this team so far this year. He had some that he could have forced that we saw Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen make and turn the ball over. He did not do that. When it wasn't there, he didn't force it. He was able to punt to the next play, and that kept us in the game. I don't think that part of his performance should be overlooked as much as it has been.
So I recently got a new truck. I've been listening to Sirius radio because they put it in, in everything. So
Yeah,
I've been listening to a lot of talk radio, right? And one of the statistics that popped out to me today that I was listening to, Justin Herbert is 20-6 when he doesn't throw any interceptions in a game. He is 6-22 when he throws multiple interceptions. You just need to just not turn the ball over, and Justin Herbert's winning games, right? I don't care if he doesn't throw a single pass in a game as long as it doesn't lead to turnovers. And what's the most impressive thing to me, this was a really good Jets defense. They finished with 36 pressures. The Chargers had 41. They had 5 sacks. We had 8. We had the better defense because if you look offensively, like the Jets offensive line and the Chargers offensive line just aren't producing at the same level, right? Like they're both offensive lines are struggling this season. But what this said to me is that defense was better than their defense. And that's how we won the game. We won this game on turnovers and special teams and just getting pressure on the quarterback, regardless of if it's Zach Wilson or Justin Herbert. We came out there and we dominated defensively in a way that the Jets couldn't overcome defensively. And that's such a huge part of the win was the Chargers did just enough what they need to do on offense to get to turn turnovers into points, whether that was 3, whether that was 6. We were scoring points off of our turnovers, and our defense was better when they needed to be than the Jets were.
You got to be opportunistic, and I think what we did well, we weren't moving the ball very well. When we were pinned deep, it was almost you knew it was going to be a punt eventually. But with that awesome defense, being able to turn the Jets over as much as we did, flipping that field position, giving the offense short fields to work with, our red zone offense has been tremendous so far this year. Austin Eckler had another down game. I want to say, like, overall, probably one of the worst Austin Eckler performances we've seen in a while, just as far as like productivity. But he had 2 touchdowns, and he was essential to those goal line drives. If we settle for field goals in that game, this is a whole different ballgame.
And then I'll let you talk about it, but Keenan Allen finished 8 for 77 yards and gets an enormous career milestone. Talk a little bit about the catch because, oh, man, that was beautiful. And talk a little bit about what that means to this franchise, to the player, and to just the history books.
No, this is an amazing accomplishment, and what a amazing person beyond just a great football player to have that happen to. Keenan Allen now over the 10,000 career receiving mark, to the second best receiver in franchise history behind only Antonio Gates. That's great company to be with, and he deserves all the praise that he's getting. Finished the game for 8 catches, 77 yards. No catch more highlight worthy than the one he set the record on, which Justin Herbert has had some struggles with that sideline pass, from 15 to 25 yards. He's not throwing that pass accurately. And this should have been a give me type of completion because Keenan Allen was wide open. Credit to, his route running acumen. Should have been an easy pitch and catch. It was not because of the ball placement. And what does Keenan Allen do? He turns into Neo from the Matrix, makes a crazy one-handed catch, secures that football, wrote 10,000 yards on it, and, the history is made. I also want to highlight Justin Herbert. Not a great game, but the quickest quarterback in the history of the NFL to have 1,500 completions. I think about 6 games faster than both Mahomes and Stafford, who are number 2 on that list.
And then just talking more about Keenan Allen. So Keenan Allen currently ranks 54th in NFL history for most receiving yards. He is the 54th player to eclipse over 10,000 yards. He's right in the same realm as Shannon Sharp, Donald Driver, Devontae Adams, who's still playing, and he's going to catch Lance Allworth. Now, Lance Allworth didn't go over 10,000 yards with just the Chargers. He ended up having a year or two with the Raiders as well. But he's going to finish this season in the top 50. And he's got a couple years left under his belt. I want to see him catch Antonio Gates at 11,800. He's 1,800 yards away. Has a real good opportunity to do it next season. We're at the halfway mark this year. Yeah. Let's assume that he gets himself another 400 yards, and then next season he needs another 1,400, and he's the Chargers' all-time leading wide receiver, regardless of position. So, I mean, he's climbing up these record books. He's 31 years old. And if you think about like some of the greats that have, had those long careers and have gone over 10,000 yards, I'm thinking like off the top of my head, Jerry Rice played till he was like 41. And in his late 30s was going for over 1,000 yards. One of our own guys, Charlie Joyner, isn't up there right now. His jersey's up there somewhere. But, his best years were, 34, 35, 36, 37 years old. There's still a lot of room, especially the way Keenan Allen plays, to still have a really long career. He could still have 5 years easily because he's not doing it deep down the field. He's always made his money as a route runner, as a guy who's just able to view the gaps in the coverage. Like, I feel like with how he's playing at 31 years old, I feel like he's as good as he's ever been throughout his entire career. And that's saying a lot for a guy who just hit 10,000 yards and isn't on the decline.
No, I think, he could play as long as he really wants to because of his skill set. It's not something that's going to deteriorate as he gets older because his game is not built on, elite athleticism. He kind of reminds me of, a spot up jump shooter in NBA. Like, how long did Ray Allen play for? Way past his prime because he could just knock down shots. I think we're going to see something similar with Steph Curry. Whenever he stops getting that athleticism and able to just dominate games, he could play till he's 60 if he wants as a spot up jump shooter. And I think it's a different sport, but based off of he wins off of smarts and football knowledge. That's not going to go anywhere. Protecting his head. So Keenan Allen, that's his record to break, and I'm excited to to see him break that because 1,400 yards, that's just a season and a half for Slayer.
Yeah, and I'm stoked to just see him continue to rise in these record books, chasing Antonio Gates. It doesn't mean anything without like wins during the season. I know that individual accolades they're great to see and all of that, but I mean, he wants to win. And I just man, if he goes anywhere next season, dude, I'm going to be so sad because he's been such the heart and soul of this one of two remaining San Diego Chargers, Joey Bosa being the other one. And with the way he's playing, I just don't know how the Chargers could ever see him play in another uniform throughout the rest of his career. So really want to give him the love. He was the only guy that was really productive on the offensive side of the ball for the Chargers against the Jets. No other player had over 23 yards receiving. Austin Eckler was largely ineffective on the ground. Joshua Kelly has been kind of schemed out of the game plan in recent weeks, trying to get Eckler going again. And then Justin Herbert just didn't have a great game, but he didn't have a bad game. He just didn't explode off the stat sheet like we're used to seeing. Chargers did just enough on offense to turn defensive turnovers into points. And, it led into another blowout win, a much more impressive win than what was done against the Bears. Go ahead and talk a little bit about this pass rush, though, man, because I feel like that's something else that's like super impactful over the back-to-back weeks and really a large part of this season so far.
Yeah. This pass rush these last couple of games have absolutely carried us, and they're setting the tone, and it's contagious. When those guys get after the passer, the second and the third level are feasting as well. And so I love this get back to having fun. The committee celebration was in full effect. How many awesome defensive celebrations did we see this past week? I loved all of that. Going back to the sack package, 40 snaps that Tuli, Mack, and Bosa have been on the field together. They are now up to 10 sacks when they're all three on the field together, 25% clip. The league average is 6.8%, 6.8% sacks to dropbacks. That's elite production. And this is a fun unit that is only getting better. Joey was really pissing me off at the beginning of the game. He had that hit on the quarterback, which was so boneheaded. Later, he had an offsides that wasn't called, and at that moment, I was upset with Joey. I was like, dude, you need to start making some plays. And he listened. He, I think, had 2.5 sacks. I think tied for the most of his career. I think Mack had 2, Tuli had 2, and they were just absolutely racing to the quarterback. Nobody wanted to be left out. We finished with 8 sacks on the day, 57 yards lost on those sacks. Tremendous production, and it is contagious. It is absolutely a major factor for why this defense is completely took a complete 180 from 3 weeks ago.
So something else I was taking a look at, I was listening to on talk radio on I forget what it's called, Sirius Radio. So no team has more sacks on third down than the Chargers, and they're getting a sack on 25% of their third downs when Mack, Bosa, and Tuli are on the field together. So I mean, that's nearly a flip of the coin. I mean, that is outstanding that we're getting to the quarterback at that rate. We are currently third in total sacks this season with 31, trailing the Chiefs and the Ravens, both of which have an extra game on us. The pass rush is really just leading this team. And we're doing it through stunts and twists, and that's been the primary way we've been getting to the quarterback, and it creates a lot of confusion up front. The Chargers' strength of this defense has been in their ability to get pressure on the quarterback and force him into bad decisions. It's not quite turning into quite as many interceptions as we like, but it's leading to a hell of a lot of forced fumbles. So far, we've got 7 this season. We've got 6 interceptions. And then talk about Joey Bosa, really coming alive. He had 3 sacks on his own, one of those being the strip sack. Between him and Khalil Mack, I don't think there's a better duo at getting strip sacks in the entire NFL. I know Khalil Mack is in that kind of that realm of just those guys who just have really shined throughout their entire career at forcing forced fumbles out of
the most of any active player right now.
The most of any active player. And Joey Bosa, healthy. I mean, I don't think we expected the pass rush to be quite as good as it has without Tuli.
Yeah. Well, this is what a lot of credit goes to Tuli, but just the resilience of Joey and Khalil. This was kind of what we were envisioning when the Khalil signing happened. We were waiting for this. And as Charger fans, it is so exciting to finally see, these expectations come into fruition. And I want to put a lot of credit to Joey Bosa's offseason, a way he attacked the offseason, bulking up, going back to his true D-end ways. And what are we seeing? We're seeing him being able to win with the bull rush, win with a variety of moves, and he's strong. What about that sack where he was getting, it should have been an illegal hands to the face, but he fights through him, just grabs a hold of Zach Wilson's jersey and says, no, end of play, and just throws him to the ground. That's all, I think, strength. And I don't think he's able to make that play, last season where, when we had him all slimmed down. So credit to Joey Bosa getting back to the weight room, attacking the offseason relentlessly. And now it's coming to, his efforts are now following through for him. And it's great to see as a Charger fan. And Tuli is just starting. This is just the tip of the iceberg for the potential of these 3 pass rushers.
Go ahead and talk to me a little bit about Alohi Gilman, kind of how impressive this. Nobody expected Gilman. I feel like everybody thought Gilman was going to be the weak link on this defense. And I feel like he's been the best player for us, best secondary player for us when he's been healthy. He's making plays all over the field. Talk a little bit about Alohi.
And we've absolutely needed this emergence. Safety was looking like a weak point just because of just the lack of snaps from that unit, behind Derwin James. But a big energy guy, a great locker room presence, one of the first guys I see celebrating, and he just had a phenomenal day. What an energy setter. And it's something I saw. He started it with that big hit over the middle for his first pass breakup, and that kind of just transcended throughout the rest of the game. I thought I saw some of the most solid tackling performance from a Chargers defense that I could remember. Hard hits, tackling the right way, wrapping up, not letting guys go, rallying to the ball carrier. All of that, I think, has a lot to do with how Alohi Gilman attacks the game, because that's how he plays. He is 150% balls to the wall kind of guy, and that's contagious. I love Loi's play so far. He's been a one of the biggest
surprises. He's been such a riser, but he's been such a surprise. Like, I don't think, like, I felt like he played well last year backing up Nasir Adderley. This year he's taken his game to a whole new level, better than Nasir Adderley was forever for us.
Well, and it's like when you see these types of, making these major leaps from one year to the next year, you usually have seen some flashes of it. I'm not saying Lowe was bad in any means, super consistent, but I didn't really, see anything from him that made me think, oh yeah, he's going to be a legitimate every down starter in this league. And now I'm very thankful that we were able to throw him into this role, because he is an absolute game changer back there. And I've loved what I've seen from 32.
Take what you want from PFF grades, but he is currently graded as the Chargers' second best player on defense. That's saying quite a bit for a guy that he's kind of small. He's not a big guy, but he's just so instinctive. He doesn't miss tackles. Even like the way that he had that pass break up, the big hit, right? Playing the ball, which is why it wasn't flagged, right? Like, There was definitely contact. That was a defensive-less player, but because he's going for it and playing the ball, I said on Twitter a few weeks ago, I was like, the NFL needs to change the defensive-less player for what it is. You have to play the ball, and you cannot hit a defensive-less player until after they've turned into a runner, because that's what it is, right? You have to play the ball. They've completely taken out the knockout shots. You just can't do it unless you're playing the ball. And that's such a big aspect of why that wasn't flagged. And then he also had the scoop and almost score, which was huge. He's playing lights out all over the field. I'm really, really thankful that he has gotten this opportunity. I mean, the Lowy crew, they've been screaming loud. I mean, wow, what a great story to see a guy drafted in the 6th round become a starter in the NFL and become really what's borderline elite. That's what he is. He's borderline elite. I'd say he's even having a better season than Derwin James is this year.
I mean, consistently, he's always around the ball. I'd say Derwin's had some not so great games, if borderline bad games. Lowy has been great, if not exceptional, every game of the year so far, and we're 8 weeks in. So credit to him. He's doing a phenomenal job. I do also want to shout out the run defense as a whole, another big part of these last 2 wins. 20 attempts for New York rushing attack, which is a good unit led by Breece Hall. 20 attempts, 64 yards, 3.2 yards a carry. That is phenomenal improvement from these Brandon Staley run defenses that we've seen in his first couple of seasons as a Charger. And I think a lot of that goes back to, what are we doing well again? We're playing with energy, we're playing together, and we're playing for one another. And that's a tough recipe to kind of overcome if you're an opposing offense.
The Chargers also had 3 forced fumbles. Alohi Gilman, Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack all got in on the quarterback. Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack got in on the quarterback, forced those strip sacks, and then Alohi Gilman making the jarring hit. No interceptions, but I mean, I'll take turnovers any way I can get them. Moving back to the offensive side of the ball, we need to get this run game going. And I'm using this kind of as a segue into the Lions game. Got to get the run game going. I also got to bring up the Darius Davis punt return touchdown, first one since 2017 with Desmond King, or 2019 maybe. 2019. Man, so fast, They actually, again, talk radio. They're talking about him having a 0.06% chance of making that return, but the vision is there. He makes a nice quick cut and he's gone.
Broke a nice tackle.
Shout out to Chargers chat on that stat. That was actually Chargers chat. Go ahead. Give me your final thoughts on this game, and then we'll go ahead and move over to the Lions.
Yeah. Last two guys I wanted to shout out. We think everybody else who deserved a highlight was shouted out. Want to shout out our specialists on special teams. I thought Jake, what is our punter's name? I thought J.K. Scott had a nice bounce back game from last year last game, which he wasn't punting well. And then Cameron Dicker, 3 for 3, a 55-yarder. Again, this guy has become automatic when you get with inside 50-yarders. That is a tremendous weapon to have that Chargers teams in past have not. A great thing to lean on, especially moving forward into a tough part of our schedule. Got a lot of playoff teams coming up, one of them being the Detroit Lions. And, man, this is going to be a great test for this really hot defense.
Moving on to this Lions game, this is going to be a real challenge for them. The Lions are currently sitting at 6-2. Jared Goff is playing as good as any quarterback in the NFL right now. He's got 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's completing 68% of his passes. He doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, and their offensive line is really, really good, and they've got a ton of playmakers pretty much everywhere. Jamari Gibbs has been playing exceptionally well. He and the tandem with him and David Montgomery, they've got the power back in David Montgomery, and they got the gadget player in Jamari Gibbs. Kind of reminds me back to the old days when we had Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler feeding off of each other. They also got some really good pass catchers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is leading the team in targets. He's got 57 receptions, 665 yards on 78 targets, 3 touchdowns. And then the rookie Sam Laporta as a tight end has been outstanding. Jameson Williams has gotten back from his suspension. Not a big part of their offense just yet. He has just 15 targets, 6 receptions, but that guy's dangerously fast. He was one of our favorite guys coming out of the draft just for his smooth route running, his speed, his size. This team is in no shortage of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. It's the only reason I believe Jared Goff is excelling is because he's just got so many options, so many ways to beat you. So talk a little bit about this offense. Take a look across their depth chart and tell me, what are you most worried about when it comes to this team offensively?
Yeah, all good questions. First of all, I think the first thing that I see when I'm looking at this Detroit offense is just how well-rounded they are. There's not a weakness on this team. Offensive line, quarterback is strong. They got skill players, and they're deep at all skill positions. Second in yards per game. One of 2 teams that are top 6 in rushing yards per game and passing yards per game. That gives you that, ability to keep defenses on their toes. They're 5th in sacks per game, a top 10 scoring team. What really scares me, you shouted out to how well Jared Goff is playing, 5th in the league right now with 271 yards a game, tied for 2nd with 35 completions of over 20 yards. And that's what scares me. So far this year, Chargers pass defense has been susceptible to the big plays, and we're going into one of the best guys doing that right now in Jared Goff. 35 passes of 20 yards or more, 5th best in the league. With that, Amon St. Ra has been one of his favorite deep targets. 3 straight 100-yard games, 31 receptions for 334 yards and a touchdown. These last 3 games. We have seen when we get a red-hot receiver so far this year, it has torn up this pass defense, especially when they have the ability to get those chunk 20, 30-yard receptions. We are going to need to be locked in on the Sun God. He cannot be finishing with his 4th straight 100-yard game. I'm all focusing on that, and I'm going to desperately try to have Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta have to carry the workload. Also, they're getting David Montgomery back, who's been out for rib injury for 2 years. They got Jahmyr Gibbs backing him up. But this is a well-rounded offense that is getting one of their skill guys back, who kind of really complements Jahmyr Gibbs well as more of a power guy. this team is scary, dude. They got a lot of pieces, and this defense is going to have its work cut out for them Sunday.
I feel like both teams are relatively healthy. Only 2 players are currently on the Chargers injury report. Joey Bosa popped up yesterday. Today, he did not practice, just an illness. Probably going to be good to go by Sunday. And then Justin Herbert, who's got the middle finger. So Chargers are relatively healthy. You take out the fact that we just put Josh Palmer on IR, which kind of surprising considering he finished the game. I feel like they just felt like they were getting enough guys back where they can go ahead, put him on IR, get him healthy, and get him back for the important part of the season. For the Detroit Lions, only 2 players did not practice. Everybody else was a full participant or limited participant. Levi Owuzurike, who's their defensive tackle, is dealing with a hip injury, and then
Halapuli Vaitai.
Say that again? I'm really impressed.
Halapuli Vaitai. I don't know, but I'm going with that. If you say it confident, you can get away with anything.
He's their guard. He's their backup guard. Probably not a guy that's super important for them. The other players that are dealing with some injuries, Donovan People-Jones, who one of their primary returners. I think Jamari Gibbs should be their most dynamic returner for sure, just for the speed aspect that he brings to it. Dan Skipper, offensive tackle, not a starter. Khalil Dorsey, defensive back, not a starter. He was a full participant. Jonah Jackson is a starter. David Montgomery is going to be returning from his rib injury, and then Frank Ragnow. So they've got some injuries, maybe some guys not 100%, but for the most part, if they're not at full strength, they're 95% of the way there. I think when it comes to like the Chargers, they're a little more banged up when you consider who's on IR, right? Josh Palmer is on IR. Mike Williams is on IR. Granted, I think we have the depth at wide receiver to overcome that. I really like the threat that Darius Davis has become, not only as a returner, but as a gadget player. And then we haven't even been able to unlock Jalen Guyton because he's only been back 1 week. We're getting our rookie back involved. In the grand scheme of things, the Chargers have enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball to really get, if this turns out to be a track match, they can run just as fast with these guys. I think that the players are there. Really interested to see just kind of how this game, the Lions can really score a lot of points in a hurry. And they don't really need to rely on any one player to do it. They want to ground and pound you. David Montgomery is going to be that guy to just take those 20 carries and really ground out 3-4 yards per carry and just keep the chains alive, really milk the clock. Or they got their home run hitters. I mean, we already know about what Jamari Gibbs does as that dynamic threat out of the backfield, catches passes out of the backfield, super shifty, super fast. I want to talk a little bit about Amon-Ra St. Brown more in depth because I just still don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. Really reminds me in terms of just his position, the way he plays it as Keenan Allen, a much younger version of that. Kind of talk a little bit more about the offense and just kind of close it out. What are your biggest threats when it comes to this? And how do you beat this team if you're the Chargers defense?
Yeah. I think it's going to come down to, we got 2 teams who are very, very good at protecting the football. You know, Justin Herbert, 13-4 TD to interception ratio. Jared Goff has a 12-5 interception ratio. So I think getting after the passer is going to be crucial. This is a offense who has a really good offensive line, the 5th best protection rate in the league. Only 16 sacks given up and 312 dropbacks, less than the league average at 5.1%. That is great. Big reason for that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds. These guys always seem to be open. With as well-rounded as an offense this is overall, they do have one, and I think pretty glaring weakness, their inability to consistently score touchdowns in the red zone, which I think is a big strength of the Chargers. Now, Detroit's offense only 25th in the league in red zone percentage. Chargers defense is not necessarily great in that regard either, just 16th in red zone possession or percentage. So I think for me, the key here, being able to get after Jared Goff, taking away his number 1 option in Amon-Ra St. Brown, getting after him, forcing him into making some bad plays, flipping the script and dealing with short yardage, giving that back to the or the offense like we saw last year or last game, that's going to be clutch. And then those are my keys that I'm focusing on how to attack this offense.
One of the strengths that I think we have defensively is our ability to stop the run. I think this is a much better offensive line than we've played so far. Maybe you take out the Chiefs. But David, I think a major issue with this team in the red zone has been David Montgomery being out, because early on in the season, like as a goal line back, like he's that guy. He's like 225, 235 pounds, somewhere in between there. And as just a mauler in the run game, like as a guy that you want to churn out those short yardage, that's what Montgomery has really excelled at throughout his entire career. I think they're going to get that figured out. And I just think having that power back makes them less one-sided offensively than they were beforehand. So that's one of those things that we're going to have to watch. I feel like this is the best test. This is the best litmus paper. I probably said that wrong. Anyways, it's the best way to go and see just how good our defense could actually be, because we beat up in back-to-back weeks on some really bad offenses. And now we built up that momentum. What are we going to look like against a team that is really quality across the entire offense? Defensively, I don't think they're nearly as good. Aiden Hutchinson has really turned into the Joey Bosa kind of player that everybody saw him as coming out of college, coming out of Michigan. He's leading the team in pressures, 46 pressures. But it's really just him. John Kaminsky, Alan McNeil, and Charles Harris round out that group. If they're getting pressure, it's going to be primarily through one single player, because the rest of their guys just aren't really as good at getting after the quarterback. Take a look at this, depth chart on the defensive side of the ball. Is there any of these guys that you're actually kind of worried about? I feel like their number one guy is just one guy. It's Aiden Hutchinson, and all these other guys just not quite as good.
Yeah. I think Aiden Hutchinson is a phenomenal player, coming into his sophomore season. A really coveted draft pick when he came out last year. I think that's their star. He makes that defense click. I'm taking a look. I don't see a bad unit, just a very young unit. You got a lot of young guys contributing. You got Aiden Hutchinson, but both of their two of their first round picks, Jack Campbell, that first rounder, Brian Branch is their nickelback, big early on selections for the Lions. They even got Broderick Martin. There's the third round pick who's in that D tackle rotation. So I don't see a bad unit, just a young unit who is learning, developing, and trying to establish an identity. With that, I see some things that we could poke at. Justin Herbert has, coming off of his worst game as a professional, only 2 300-yard passing games on the year. This is a secondary that, yes, it's the NFL. You're not going to take anybody for granted, but this is a secondary. If I'm Justin Herbert, I'm looking like I might have a fun game. I'm looking for my third 300 passing yard game, spreading it out, giving everybody involved. This is a secondary that I think is susceptible, and I'm excited to see the offense get back into their ways, because I haven't seen a good offensive performance in a couple of weeks from that unit.
Yeah, it's really not the best. It's a young group, and I think them losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson early in the season was huge. A big loss for them. But even Jack Campbell, who was their first round pick, who was one of my favorite linebackers this entire draft class, I think he was the only linebacker that went in the first round way before everybody else. He hasn't even been needed a whole lot because they've got Alex Anzalone there, who actually leads the team in pass breakups. This is not a secondary that is exceptionally good right now. I'll just go through their starting defense real quick, and we can talk about it. There are 2 starting edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson and John Kaminsky. John Kaminsky is one of those tweener guys who can play outside at edge, or he can play, inside as their 3-tech defensive tackle. He kind of moves around. He's kind of their Morgan Fox, who they don't really have a whole lot at edge right now, so they've moved him off to edge. And then in the middle, they got Aleem McNeil and Benito Jones. This is a true 4-3 defense. At linebacker, they've got Derek Barnes and Alex Anzalone, with Jack Campbell spelling them, being kind of their rotational linebacker to keep those guys fresh. Cam Sutton comes over from the Steelers, not really a great cornerback, but just one of those plug and play kind of guys. Jerry Jacobs is out there. I feel like Jerry Jacobs is a little underrated, but he's by no means like taking star wide receivers out of the game. Brian Branch has been playing exceptionally well as a rookie, as a nickelback, as the guy that replaced CJ Gardner-Johnson. Probably wasn't expected to play as much as he was. He's a safety that kind of plays best in the slot, and that's where he did a lot of his work in Alabama. And then in the secondary, Tracy Walker, I think, is probably their captain of that whole defensive group, and Kirby Joseph, who's been in the league for a couple seasons now. It's not a great defense. I think it's just enough to get by. I'm really surprised they didn't try to make a couple more moves to get a little bit better on this side of the ball prior to the trade deadline. But this team you can air it out. You can run against them. They're coached kind of that gritty coach, one of those guys that wants to be really physical on the defensive side of the ball. They just don't have that quite built in yet. I feel like they're a good 1 or 2 seasons away. I feel like Brian Branch is going to eventually ascend to that stardom. They just need some more time to develop, and this is going to be a scary group with some of those young players, and they've spent a lot of draft capital. Josh Paschal was recently drafted. Aiden Hutchinson was recently drafted. Benito Jones, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, all these guys drafted within the first 3 rounds in the last 2 seasons. So they've really invested heavily on the defensive side of the ball. They're just not there yet, and they're a really good team. They're 6-2, and it shows. I just question whether or not they are a Super Bowl caliber team today.
Well, a lot of room to improve. And, that looking defensively, this is a unit I don't want to play in 4 years. Happy to play them this year. The thing is, this is a very well-rounded team. Their defense does enough, keeps them in games, and they don't really need to be lights out when, you got an offense that could score 30 points at will. With that, everybody needs to be on. This can't be a fragmented win. All 4 of our wins have either been offense carries, defense doesn't show up, or vice versa. This cannot be that game. We need flawless execution defensively, special teams. Offense needs to have one of its best games of the year, if not its best, because this is going to be a tough fight. This will be a legit test. 5-4 Chargers, I might start talking about. I might back in on the 2023 season. Not quite there. This game is very scary to me. I don't know what version of the Chargers we are going to get, but 3 wins in a row is nothing to joke about, especially when that third one comes against a very quality team in the Detroit Lions.
To close this game out and to close just kind of what we're talking about, this is a playoff team. They have a 95% chance to make the playoffs based off of they're going to win their division. I don't think the Packers are very good right now. I think the fact that the Vikings lost their quarterback is huge detriment to that team, and the Packers are just not really good. We'll be actually at that game next weekend. Is that next weekend?
Yeah, it is.
So right now, Detroit is looking like they're going to make the playoffs right now. PFF has them at a 95% chance to make the playoffs, so they're in. Us beating a playoff caliber team is going to be just essential to our future, right? Like if we can beat a good team finally, like building momentum against little teams that you can beat up on, like the Bears, like the Jets. And I feel like the Jets are kind of a fringe playoff team. But if you can go and beat those, a good team who's 6-2, who's riding a lot right now, I feel like that'll just build more confidence in this team. One of the things we really haven't talked about, the energy on the defense. This Chargers team is playing together, and I think that's a big aspect why in just 2 games we seem to have turned things around a bit. Even so, PFF does not like the Chargers right now. They currently have us as 22% chance of making the playoffs, 5% chance of winning the division. Right now, we have the 3rd hardest strength to schedule to end the season. Out of what's remaining, the 6th. average wins. They expect us to win 8 games, and they do not expect us. I feel like everybody's picking against us this game. We have the better quarterback. I feel like we have the better defense. I don't think we have as good of an offense today, but I feel like we have better players overall than they do. We'll take a look and just see exactly how this is going to end. This is a normal Sunday game. I want to say it's at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. I was going to be at this game, but things happen, and now I'm not going. But give me your final score projection, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, first, just my big keys, both offensively and defensively, winning the first 2 downs. We've been getting into too many 3rd and longs. The offensive line, I'd like to see Kellen Moore make things simple for Keenan Allen, and with that, I think winning on 1st and 2nd down, making those 3rd and manageables, scheming him up so he doesn't have to put so much on his shoulders. That's going to be a key offensively. Defensively, I need that to happen because we're playing a very, very aggressive coach and Dan Campbell. Leads the league in 4th down attempts and conversions. We are horrible on 4th down. Great on 3rd down, horrible on 4th down. Reason is because we'll keep teams to 3rd and 8, give up 7 yards, and then we're giving up 4th and 1. So if we can continue to dominate on those 1st and 2nd downs, making sure that 3rd and long stays to a 4th and long, we're going to be in a good spot. I think this is going to be a firefight. I'm going 33-28 Chargers. Let me see it happen.
I really do. I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. This is going to be a real test for the defense. I think it's going to be both teams scoring in the 30s. Probably going to be like a 38-33 game. I think we're going to lose this one. I think that we've built a lot of momentum, but I feel like they've also built a lot of momentum, and their momentum has been going a lot longer. They've got things figured out. I think they have a good coach. I feel like when what's their coach's name?
Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell. I feel like when Campbell took over this job, we thought it was just going to be a dumpster fire, but he's turned this team around.
He's funny. But no, I think he's a phenomenal coach. I thought he was kind of a fad, just kind of said things quirky just to do things, but he believes it. That is just part of his personality, and I love it. He has something funny, just kind of into your point, how he's just a different guy. But he's
a different guy. I gave him so much shit when he was talking about gnawing on kneecaps.
Yeah, he's a weird guy, but
he's been a phenomenal coach, and he's built a true powerhouse and a team that's built to win for the long haul. They're going to run that division for a long time.
No, but I think it's a good team, and Dan Campbell is a good man to lead this team. I just thought it was funny in a press conference they were asking him about his aggressive nature versus Staley's aggressive nature. What do you anticipate seeing when 2 aggressive coaches clash? And his response, I think both of us will just become very conservative this game. That's what we're going to do. I haven't talked to him about it, but we'll see if we'll just call off the dogs. Like, no, you're not. But why are you saying that? It's just fun.
This is a game I'm expecting Brandon Staley to really be super aggressive, and I feel like this is going to be one of those games where people are going to be questioning his decisions.
I'm fine with that. I want to go back to playing to win, not playing not to lose.
I feel like against teams where you're going to get in a firefight against, I feel like these types of games is when you have to be aggressive because that, like, I felt like the last 2 weeks were a lot more conservative because we had no faith in their offense to go and score points. If I think that if I turn this ball over here and I think that they're going to score, I'm going to go for it. And I feel like that's that type of game that this is going to be. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. 2 weeks from now, we're going to Green Bay, man.
We are going to Green Bay. All I was going to say about the aggressive thing, I hope this is an aggressive game. I hope both teams go for it a lot in 3rd, 4th down conversions because I think that's going to benefit the better defense, which I think is the Chargers. With that, back to your statement. We are going to Green Bay. I am so excited. Tickets are bought. I've been talking about it for the last 3 weeks or so. I can't wait to get out to Green Bay. Got all my winter clothes ready to go. I'm bringing a little sunshine with me, and I hope we get a dub because the Packers are not good at all.
I was checking the weather. It's going to be looking like it's going to be in the high 40s while we're there. We're about a week out from this. And dude, just the chance to go to Lambeau, see all that history. And I'd much rather go when they're a bad team because I want to win while we're there so I can talk shit to a bunch of cheeseheads.
That's fun. I do want to say stat of the day. Do you know that the Chargers are undefeated when both you and I are in attendance?
Look at that. That is very true. That's a good stat.
Chargers, if you want to win, you want a Super Bowl, get me and Tyler out there every single game. I'm sick of this fan of the year. I don't know where we found this Minnesota fan, but we're your guys. If you want to win, call us.
Undefeated while in attendance together.
Knock on wood. I know we at SoFi at least.
At SoFi, maybe we'll just keep the SoFi thing going. All right, let's go ahead and get out of here, man.